We're going to talk about vegetable gardening. Maybe in 2025 you've made that one of your goals. I'm eating this delicious arugula, which is surprisingly fantastic. You can eat it raw right out of the garden. I'm John Valentino, president of John and Bob's Corporation. We like to make soil healthy. This is Chip Valentino. We're both here at this Kingsburg vegetable garden made out of Corten steel. I have been involved in building gardens and vegetable gardens and landscapes. This will be my 46th year. Maybe that makes me sound old, but Chip and I are trying to maintain our youthful appearance. For vegetable gardening, you've got a few decisions to make. Exposure, first of all, mostly full sun or a lot of sun. That's what most vegetables need. Here, there's tremendous sun exposure. And then you want to decide if you want to grow in a raised planter, which are more expensive, but are really nice to garden in because of the quality of the soil and proximity to your height, so you don't have to bend down a lot. If you want to do a large garden, it's much more cost effective to do it in the ground. And maybe you already have great soil, and so in the ground isn't going to be a problem, but we'll help you make that successful by prescribing for you soil improving products. In addition to doing raised beds out of Corten steel, you can do just regular containers. That can be very effective also. You can grow tomatoes in a relatively small 15-gallon container. As you can see from these, in these raised Corten planters, they can be attractive, but they can also have their downside visually. So you need to use a little bit of good judgment as far as what you want to see in your garden and what you want to be prominent or not prominent. So a typical thing to do with vegetable garden plots is to kind of put them off to one side or another and maybe have plantings around it that are complementary. This looks pretty darn good, but you need to consider that sometimes in between crops it's not that attractive. So our topic today is the vegetable garden, but if you're interested in landscaping in general, we just posted several videos on how to plan and then begin to implement that. There's a background screening shrub behind it, which you can't really see. It's a dwarf bay tree, essentially, and you can use bay leaves in cooking. And the cultivar of this is reflective of that. It's called Little Ragu. The other reason I like it as a screen, since its growth is controlled, we don't have to hack at it as it gets bigger. We can let it grow, look at its natural form. It never would get taller than this top of this block wall. It'll probably at full size be a little lower than that. So if you're planting your spring and summer crops and you want to plant something now to fill in these spaces, then you can plant herbs. Any of the herbs would be good. Maybe even you could find some strawberries. Strawberries would work, even though it's a little early. Things like lettuce and spinach, those are all pretty fast maturing plants that I think you could plant and harvest prior to when it's time to plant the summer crops. You can plant crops so you have something delicious and nutritious to eat all year round, depending on where you live. Maybe not in Michigan or Minnesota, but in warm climates, that's very doable. A lot of the crops in mild climates like ours, you can just vary the planting dates. A quick example, radishes. If you plant some radishes every 30 days in relatively warm weather, they can germinate and be ready to harvest in 30 days. You wait and plant a few every 30 days, you'll have radishes all the time it's warm. Same thing with lettuces and spinach. There could have already been those planted earlier in the year, and then you could plant some now, and you could go all through the winter producing your own greens. Planting is fairly simple, and it's similar to planting plants. You don't want to bury it too deeply. You want to water it right after you plant it. You want to make sure you're planting it at a time where inclement weather that's upcoming isn't going to impact it. For instance, you wouldn't plant citrus in the middle of the winter, even if you're in a mild winter area, because it's sensitive right after planting, and you could get a frost that would impact them more negatively. The onions, the garlic, the herbs, the Swiss chard, the beets, the arugula, the potatoes, everything's being watered the same. This is adjacent to landscape planting. We separated these three planters to be on their own valve, on their own station, so that you can water the vegetables in your yard separately. The number of days, the amount of time is going to be different than any of the plants in the garden. In a raised situation, the soil is probably going to be lighter than your native soil. There'll be different watering times and watering days. Try to set up your irrigation system where you separate the vegetable garden from anything else. More water, more weeds. This is such a tight area and we're growing all kinds of things together. We just water this whole rectangle. But say you're in the ground, then you could just water the individual plants and not put water everywhere. When you put water everywhere, you have more weed pressures. Mulch helps tremendously. The owner in this one did a neat thing. He used earthworm castings as his mulch, and that's a really good mulch. And maybe a coarser mulch would do a little more in terms of weed discouragement. You know, mulch and pulling weeds combination over time is tremendously effective at weed control. Might be a little discouraging in the beginning because if you think, I'm going to put on this mulch, as soon as you put on the mulch, you start seeing weeds and you think it's not working. Well, it will work, but it's a long-term, very soil beneficial process. I mean, that's tremendous for soil, is to use mulch on top and then mechanically get rid of the weeds by pulling or light hoeing or something, and continue to mulch, continue to make it so you always have like a 2-inch layer there. The other thing that discourages weeds, encourages less weeds, is really healthy soil. Soil that's bacterial dominated and not so healthy and not so advanced in terms of microbiology has more weeds. And so we want to develop the life in the soil beyond just bacteria. We want fungi and protozoa and good nematodes, and those more highly developed soils have less weeds. What we try to do is feed them our products or good quality compost or earthworm castings. Those kinds of products encourage complex life, and it's that complex life that not only allows plants to grow and produce their best, but it allows soil to not host as many weeds. But the more water, the more nitrogen, those things might make weeds grow, particularly in soil that isn't well developed. Healthy soil is the most important part of a successful vegetable garden. Actually, successful flowers and successful plants of all kinds. If you're using soil that has lots of microbiology, then you're producing food that's much more nutrient dense, and that is a problem with today's soils. They're less microbiologically active, and so a lot of the crops are less nutrient dense. I do that, and I'm 95. And look at me. Pretty good, huh?
No Botox either.
For no Botox yet, but when I hit 100, I might need it. Chip has had no Botox either, and he doesn't have a wrinkle. An important part of growing in raised planters or pots is the quality of what you use as the potting soil. In this case, we made our own potting soil, and you can refer to a prior video we did where we give the recipe for making your own potting soil. You can also buy a pre-made one like black gold. With either of those, black gold or when you make your own, a big part of that is our products that we recommend, so to maximize, the optimize, the Nourish Biosol, and the Penetrate Liquid Biotiller. We used all of those things, and then as I said, the owner added earthworm castings, which he had a good local source for here, and that's a really powerful combination. That's a surefire success. Raised beds or pots, you need to apply more amendments / fertilizers than you would in the ground. The water leaches through faster and leaches the soil faster. If we've been helpful to you and maybe inspirational to you to grow vegetables and produce some of your own food, which is a neat thing to do, then keep watching our videos. We'll keep talking about it. Subscribe and like the video and tell all your friends to watch it. We need more views, and we'll keep trying to help all of you grow healthy, nutritious food. This garden has pineapple guava. You could grow pineapple guava. They have one in a pot. These are all semi-dwarf citrus in more raised cortin planters with rosemary underneath. Obviously, the rosemary you can use in cooking, and it smells fantastic. A Satsuma mandarin orange, some people call them tangerine. That's a Caracara orange. That's that real nice pink one. This is a Bear's lime. And so all of those don't get real big. You could use a grapefruit or a big lemon, but we like picking these smaller ones that aren't going to get too huge. And then we have one that's struggling here. This is a Meyer lemon. We're not sure why it doesn't look good, but we're working with it. It has the same treatment as all the rest. Kind of defoliated and got chlorotic looking. I think that'll change dramatically in the spring because the soil's very healthy. So we're hoping we get into March and April and this will turn around. In the meantime, we're just trying to make sure it gets watered properly.